Hey, greetings! Welcome back to Sean's Irish Whiskey Shelf, coming at you from the heart of the United States out here in the Midwest. And as always, before we get started today, I want to give a shout out to my favorite retailer, Hard to Find Whiskey. You can find them at htfw.com. Check them out. See what they've got. Man, they've got all kinds of great whiskey. They've also got other liquors there, gin, vodka, tequila. So yes, they're overseas, but they really do have a fantastic selection. And I find that even for the extra shipping, I can find things there that I really can't find anywhere else. So if you're looking for some whiskey that maybe you can't find elsewhere, give Hard to Find Whiskey a try. You might be surprised. So what I have for you this evening is a bottle of Sadler's Peaky Blinder. Now, I had a bottle of this and I bought it kind of back when I started my whole collecting Irish whiskey process. And then along came the Great Irish Whiskey Disaster of 2021, and it was one of the bottles that I lost. Had not been able to find it anywhere ever since. So not even on Hard to Find Whiskey. I talked to them, and apparently it's been getting very, very difficult to find. So I happened to find a bottle just in passing from another vendor online that was left over. So I was lucky enough to grab a bottle, and I'm really happy because that I had a big hole in my shelf from where that bottle used to sit. So let's talk about Sadler's Peaky Blinder a little bit. So this hit the market in 2018, and the company that brought it to the market is Sadler Ales. Now, Sadler Ales is based in Birmingham, England. The name Peaky Blinder is inspired by the show Peaky Blinders, kind of like when we talked about the Bushmill Prohibition recipe. So a little bit of a tie-in there to the show. And of course, Peaky Blinders, the show being based in the 1920s Birmingham, England, great tie-in there with Sadler Ales also being in Birmingham, England. So it's a nice tie-in there. The whiskey here, of course, it's not distilled by Sadler's Ales. They source the whiskey from elsewhere. They do say that it comes from County Cork, so they've narrowed that down a little bit. But they don't say who really produces the whiskey, and they use a blend of single malt and grain whiskey. Those are the two whiskeys that they put into Peaky Blinder. And then, of course, it's matured in bourbon casks and sherry casks. If you narrow down, though, some of the bigger distilleries in County Cork, there are two that come straight to mind. You could think of Middleton Distillery, and Middleton certainly has the production capability to provide some grain whiskey and some single malt whiskey over to Sadler Ales. Another one, maybe a little less known, a little less well-known perhaps, is Cork Distilleries. So, or West Cork Distilleries, I should say, West Cork. So there's a possibility, because West Cork also does, grain and single malt. So those two are generally possibly considered the suppliers of the whiskey for Peaky Blinder. But with no confirmation from Sadler Ales, you're not going to know for sure. Maybe if some of my viewers want to go on an investigative sort of tour or take on a task to be a PI, maybe they could find out. But regardless, this is not an expensive whiskey. If you do happen to find it, and again, I'm not really sure if it's in production or not. Doesn't seem like anywhere in the States has it. Hard to Find Whiskey has trouble finding it. The website shows that you can still buy bottles of whiskey, but a lot of other retailers are showing out of stock. So no one apparently really knows if you can get it. If you do find it and it's priced the way it should be priced, you should be able to get it in around the $30 range. So won't break the bank, and that's to be expected. Okay, this is not a super aged whiskey, so you're not looking at something like a Gold Spot or something that's been in the cask for a while. So let's explore this together. So as you can notice, it is a very nice dark color, and that obviously owes a little bit to being matured in sherry casks. Sherry is going to give it that nice color. So let's try this together and see how it tastes. It's got a good nose. You see, that's not too bad. For a whiskey that is very reasonably priced. Of course, it's triple distilled, like just about every whiskey in Ireland. In fact, I think I've only ever seen 1 or 2 bottles that aren't triple distilled. That's not a bad drop of whiskey. It might be just a little tiny bit not as complex as some other whiskeys, but really and honestly, folks, I think the sherry, they've got it just right. You can get some of these whiskeys that are bourbon and sherry, and the sherry kind of overpowers a little bit. I'm not a big sherry guy, and we've tried whiskeys together where the sherry just comes through too hard. Kind of throws off the taste of the Irish whiskey. Because I drink Irish whiskey for the Irish whiskey. If you want to add a little bit of flavor from sherry or marsala or whatever you happen to choose, okay. But please let the Irish whiskey continue to shine through and stand on its own with that little bit of emphasis there. And I think that's what this does. Right? For an inexpensive whiskey, this has won a couple of awards. Let me see, I don't know if they have, no, they don't have the awards on here, but I did notice that they do have a couple of awards that they've won. Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention, I apologize. Every edition that they put out has a different character from the show on here. I can't speak to that. I really don't recall which character was on the bottle I lost in 2021, but it is kind of interesting. Back to the taste though. I really find this to be not bad at all for an inexpensive whiskey. There's worse whiskeys back here for about the same price. This really kind of hits the spot. I don't think you can take this and put it up against a Tullamore Dew or a Jameson or a Bushmills. And I say that because of the sherry finish. I think it's unfair because you're going to get a flavor profile out of this that you're not going to get out of some of your other everyday whiskeys. Because they just do bourbon. Finish it in a bourbon cask or mature it in a bourbon cask and call it a day. Sadler's, the whiskey they get, is finished in bourbon and sherry. So it gets that unique flavor to it for an everyday kind of blend. I like it. I like it. It's priced right. If it was something that could be found regularly here in the States, I very likely would keep it as an everyday whiskey. You might like it too. Again, we talk about this all the time. Your palate's different than mine. But I enjoy this whiskey. Even if it has a little bit of a not quite as complex flavor as others, I don't think that detracts from it. I really don't. It's smooth. It doesn't have a terrible ethanol burn. It's got that little bit of sherry flavor. And I'm sorry, folks, I can't keep talking. I can't say enough. This is really some good whiskey. Yeah, I do. I like that. So anyway, that's all I have for you this evening. Just one bottle, as opposed to the last show where I had 10 bottles out here. And you know, as we go along and we learn about these things, maybe we pull off a couple of bottles at some point that are bourbon and sherry. See how they stack up to each other. See how where that line is between having the right amount of sherry and having too much sherry, to where you start to lose the character of the Irish whiskey. So that may be a show for the future. In the meantime, as always, I always want you to enjoy your drops of Irish whiskey, because any reason to have a drop of Irish whiskey is a great reason. But I want you to do it responsibly, so you can be here next week for the next show. Next show, we're going to pull down Sean's Irish whiskey, and we'll give that a shot, see what that's like, and see if it's worthy of being a bottle of whiskey from Ireland's oldest pub, put together back in, I think, 900 AD is what they say on there. If you liked this video, and by the way, I forgot, oh man, I meant to mention this at the beginning, we're at 100 subscribers. I'm blown away. I sincerely hoped I would get to that point, but wasn't sure I ever would. And to each of you, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support. I've had some really great comments here recently, and I love engaging with my viewers. So, you know, I wish you all were close by, because to celebrate the 100 subscribers, we'd have a good old Irish whiskey tasting. But since we can't do that, I'll have to do it on my own and think of each of you. But I do appreciate the subscriptions. If you liked the video, hey, go down in that corner, just give me a quick thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so and you want to be the 101st subscriber, go down in the other corner, click the subscribe button, and then when you're done, click the bell, thumbs up over here. Click the bell, and you'll be notified of when I make a new video. Always try to do one a week. I love my Irish whiskey, and I hope you do too. So until we meet again, I want you to be well and be safe, okay? Sláinte. Bye now.